What's up everybody, it's Evan, and today I'll be counting down my top 10 favorite Super Mario games of all time. Mario is by far my most favorite video game character, and I always get excited whenever a new mainline Mario title is announced. How long I have to wait before I can get excited is up to Nintendo. While not every Mario game is perfect, it's incredibly hard for me to consider any of them bad. Even if it's a title I don't find myself wanting to revisit very much, I can still get behind just about every mainline Mario game there is. I don't envision this list being super controversial, but just remember this is solely based off my personal opinion and experiences, so without further ado, let's just jump into it. Get it? Because Mario used to be called Jumpman? Haha. With the plethora of Mario games that exist, you're all probably wondering why I have Super Mario Land for the Game Boy at number 10. While this game isn't very graphically advanced or colorful, I still think it's a fun game. And to my knowledge, it was the first Mario game you could play portably. Who needs a TV? Mario Land looks very goofy and definitely had a glow up in its sequel, Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins, but aside from being pretty dated at this point, Mario Land still functions as a very competent and fun platformer. Getting to travel through different worlds, fighting off spiders, Japanese schoolgirls, aliens, what's not to like? And because it's such a short game, you can easily knock it out in 30 minutes or so, which is why I played it on my channel as well, so go check out that video too. I also think the end credit theme is one of the best Mario songs of all time. I don't think there's any doubt Super Mario Bros. 3 is one of the best Mario games ever, and it's easily the best one on the NES. Now, I actually never owned an NES as a kid, but once a year when the Super Bowl came around, my family and I would go to a friend of my parents' house to watch the game. This was way before I started watching sports, so instead of watching the biggest football game of the year, I'd played Mario Bros. 3 with the other kids in the basement. Even though I wasn't very good at the game, I still thought it was loads of fun. All the cool power-ups to use, levels to explore, and taking turns with all the other kids, yeah, that part was annoying. As I got older, I also was able to play the GBA remake, Super Mario Advance 4. I had so much fun playing this game, but wow was it hard. Especially the NES version, I had issues with the controls and found myself falling to my doom many times. Granted, I was just a young, uncoordinated kid, but I still consider Mario Bros. 3 to be pretty challenging today. And the only reason it's considerably low on this list is because I never actually owned it, so I really couldn't put a lot of time into playing it. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is probably one of the most nostalgic titles on this list for me. I put so much time into this game as a kid, and I don't think I've ever played more multiplayer on any other mainline Mario game. It's so easy to take multiplayer for granted nowadays, but this was the first time we were ever able to play a Mario game with both players on screen. Being able to work together to complete each level was just so rewarding and wholesome. Well, I'm sure it was like that for some people. For me, I liked picking up my siblings and cousins and throwing them to their doom. But aside from using this game to be a complete menace, it was still so much fun to play. Getting to fly with the propeller power-up and gliding across the ice in the penguin suit were just a few of the things that made this game so enjoyable. And I'll never forget how satisfying it was when I finally managed to defeat Bowser and watch the final cutscene. Remember, I was just a kid at the time, so to actually finish a game and watch the credits roll was a pretty rare occurrence. This is the last new Super Mario game on this list, I promise. Yes, I was one of the few people that owned a Wii U at the time, and New Super Mario Bros. U was one of the games I played on it. Because I didn't own New Super Mario Bros. DS, this was only the second installment of the series for me, personally. It's so easy to hate on the New Super Mario Bros. Series nowadays, but at their core, they are all still really good games. The main reason I love Mario Bros. U is because it was the first game I ever 100% completed, and boy did I work work hard for it. Beating the main story isn't super difficult, but collecting all the star coins and finishing all the levels in Superstar Road is much more challenging. I also think the Acorn power-up is kind of underrated. Sure, it's not the best power-up ever created, but it's easily the best one in the game. Well, I mean, maybe it isn't underrated, and it just feels that way because nobody had a Wii U back then.
Super Mario 3D World! Meow!
Similarly to New Super Mario Bros. U, Super Mario 3D World was a game I put countless hours into. Unfortunately, I never 100% completed it, but it was the game that made me want to buy a Wii U. For most Wii U owners, the reason was either Mario Kart 8 or Super Smash Bros. And like the New Super Mario Bros. Series, a lot of people like to hate on 3D World. Well, at least they used to. Yeah, I think as time has gone on, people have warmed up to Mario 3D World a little bit more. The main reason it was poorly received was because fans were anticipating a new actual 3D Mario game, and not just some revamped version of a 3DS game. Despite the game being more structured like a 2D game, there were still lots of fun levels to explore and secrets to find. The catsuit was always fun to use, and the cherries were probably the most innovative new power-up in the whole game. And of course, who could forget the Captain Toad levels? They were so awesome. And heck, they made a separate game about it. And heck, I also did a gameplay on that game, so yeah, go check that out. Shameless plug.
It's me, Mario! Hello!
If this list was going to have any controversy, putting Super Mario 64 at number 5 was probably going to be the reason, but please just hear me out before you close the video. Super Mario 64 is one of the greatest games ever made and has the biggest speedrunning community, to my knowledge at least. I'm just not very good at playing it. The controls can be a little tough to get used to, but my main problem is the camera. It is so limited, and if I had a nickel for every time I tried to move the camera and the game did this, I'd have a lot of nickels. But aside from the game being really frustrating sometimes, Super Mario 64 is an all-time classic. I remember having so much fun playing it on my cousin's Nintendo 64 as a kid. We didn't really know what we were doing, but still had a great time just running around the castle and exploring the various levels. And once the game became available on the Wii U Virtual Console, I wasted no time buying it. Nowadays, I can either play Mario 64 on the Switch or on the Nintendo 64 I recently bought. I find both versions to be fun, but it definitely feels more special when you get to play on the original hardware. Super Mario World has to be considered one of the greatest Mario games ever made. Nintendo did an amazing job of following up Super Mario Bros. 3 with another timeless classic. When I was growing up, there was a brief period where I owned a Super Nintendo. And by owned, I mean my family was borrowing it from our relatives. This was the first time we ever had video games in our house. So I could argue the Super Nintendo was what got me into video games. Yep, this is where it all started. I played so many games like Harvest Moon, Mario is Missing, Super Double Dragon, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario Kart, and of course, Super Mario World. It's hard to not love this game, especially playing it as a kid. All of the bright colors, upbeat music, Yoshi, power-ups, football players, the Koopalings, the fun just never ends. Not to mention how insane all of the Kaizo hacks are. I've never tried one myself, but it is so entertaining to watch people online making these really tough levels look like a walk in the park. And as far as the original game goes, I never beat Bowser, which isn't shocking at all because I was just a kid, but I did manage to finish the game on the GBA remake, so hopefully that counts for something.
Super Mario Odyssey!
I'm not gonna lie, Super Mario Odyssey was probably the most excited I've ever been for a new Mario game. I pre-ordered it as early as humanly possible, and when I finally got it, I could not stop playing it. I really love to look for secrets, so exploring every kingdom was a very long process for me, but it didn't matter because of just how stinking fun this game is. Capturing enemies and items with Cappy is one of the most innovative features they've added to Mario games in a long time, and I can confidently say controlling Mario in this game feels probably the best compared to any other Mario game. There's only a few problems I have with Odyssey. First, because I played it so much when it launched, I think I burned myself out. I really haven't had much interest in playing Super Mario Odyssey in a while, but what goes along with that is another problem I have. There is just too many damn moons in this game, and I think this causes the replayability to feel extremely daunting. Granted, you don't have to collect every single moon when playing through the game, but for completionists like me, it can still be frustrating. But despite a few complaints about Odyssey, it's still a great game, one of the best on the Switch, and I really hope Nintendo considers making a sequel in the near future.
Super Mario Sunshine! Woohoo!
Super Mario Sunshine may be the only Mario game I've ever been hooked on. For those of you who have watched my video listing my top 10 favorite video games, you'll know that this was a game I played as a kid at my cousin's house. And because I didn't own the game myself, I didn't want to do anything else whenever I went to his house. But a good thing that came out of this obsession of Sunshine was being introduced to watching gameplay videos on YouTube. Before, I only went on YouTube to watch random videos like Salad Fingers, Charlie Bit My Finger, Greatest Freakout, you know, the classics. Similarly to Super Mario 64, I mainly loved playing Sunshine because it was just so much fun to run around to Isle Delfino and the other worlds while messing with different characters and using FLUDD to hover around. As I started to grow up and become more goal-oriented with this game, I quickly realized how difficult it can get. Some missions are notorious for being extremely frustrating, and I still have never 100% completed this game. I did do a gameplay for Sunshine on my channel, but it was just to beat the main story. Even though I haven't fully completed the game, I still hold Super Mario Sunshine in high regard, and I believe it is one of the most enjoyable Mario games ever made. Just like my top 10 video games list, I also technically have 2 games in the top spot. But to be fair, the Super Mario Galaxy series as a whole feels like one game to some extent. Yes, there are many differences between the 2 games, but they both play the same and have the same mechanics. And apparently Super Mario Galaxy 2 was basically made to expand on more ideas and levels that didn't make it into the first game. As far as the story goes, Galaxy 2 doesn't even seem to acknowledge the fact that it's a sequel, so thinking of it as an expansion or DLC really isn't that big of a stretch. I could go on and on about why I love Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 all day. I've done gameplays for both of them on my channel, and if they ever decide to release a third game, I would buy it as soon as possible. Collecting Starbits and launching to other galaxies is an immensely satisfying feeling, and the galaxies themselves are so creative and fun. Sure, not all of them are perfect, especially anything with Fluzzard or maybe even motion controls. Excuse me. And of course, you can't talk about Super Mario Galaxy without mentioning how it has the best soundtracks of any Mario game. The Super Mario Galaxy games are orchestras of perfection in my opinion, and it would be very tough for Nintendo to ever top them. So ladies and gentlemen, that was my top 10 favorite Mario games. Like I mentioned, I feel like the only pick people may not agree with is Mario 64 not being higher. And I mean, maybe even the fact I have Super Mario Sunshine so high, it seems like people either love or hate that game. But that's it for this video. If you liked it, then check out my other videos, and I'll see you all next time, so stay tuned for more.